Hello, welcome back to the Game & Muscle YouTube channel and welcome to our review of the Thrustmaster T-Flight Rudder Pedals, which are currently the best value for money rudder pedals on the market for flight simulators like Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, Xplane 11, DCS, or space flight simulators where you want to have rudder control. What do you get with these? What's good? What's bad? Let me tell you. Basically, these are constructed from plastic. They do feel a little bit tacky. They don't feel super expensive. But what you do get with them is the ability to actually control the yaw of your aircraft. Little bit of a lesson here for those of you that don't know about flight sims or flight or just getting into it. The yaw of the aircraft is this movement. That's pitch, that's roll, and that's yaw. If we push the right, we yaw right. If we push the left, we yaw left. But you also, with these rudder pedals, get toe brakes. So in that case, we've just turned the brakes off. So you've got a right toe brake and a left toe brake, and that gives you individual wheel control when it comes to landing and actually stopping your aircraft. Let's put the parking brake back on. In terms of what Windows sees, you get 3 axes, the yaw axes, and then individual axes for the toe brakes. And for those of you that love the nitty-gritty technological details, the axes are all done with potentiometers. They don't use Hall effect sensors, which are better, but potentiometers work fine, so it doesn't really matter. What I would say, though, is when you plug the pedals in to Windows, they will come up with like a default Windows driver and not the actual Thrustmaster driver that you want. So when you get these, plug them into your PC and download the correct drivers from the internet so that it comes up properly in simulators. Now, before I talk about the build quality and what's really good and bad about these pedals, what I will say is once you've got the drivers installed, once you've plugged them in, with something like Xplane 11, and this is probably the case with Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, when you plug them in, they just come up in the simulator straight away. It's already all there. You see, you've got the T-rudder there. It's already all set up, and you're ready to go. Basically, no faffing and fiddling, which is absolutely fantastic because you know, flight simulators are already complicated enough. So let's just get in the cockpit here. Give it some welly. Take off the parking brake. And you'll notice that we're going to the left a bit here. Well, the reason for that is that in order to demonstrate these pedals, these rudder pedals, I've put an absolutely absurd, bonkers crosswind on in the simulator. So really, this is the actual point of rudder pedals. You really need that yaw control when you've got crosswinds, or when you're trying to actually keep your plane from slopping around whilst turning, doing actual coordinated turns, as it's called in the world of flight and flight simulation. You'll notice a little ball on the dash here. You can see that our turn coordinator, you can see that because of the wind here and the turbulence, this ball is going all wonky donk. Ideally, if you don't want your passengers to be banging their heads against the windows, you want to keep this ball in the middle here. The more left and right it is, the more vomit is going to be in your cabin. Now, some of you, especially if you're new to flight simulation, you might be saying to yourself, hang on a minute, Game & Muscle, why do I need throttle? Why do I need rudder pedals? Why do I need rudder pedals when I've got a joystick that already has yaw control on it? Well, good point. If you've got the Thrustmaster T1600, which is currently actually the best, cheapest joystick you can buy, and it comes with a HOTAS, and the HOTAS itself also has the option to have you can put rudder on the actual HOTAS bit. If you've got a joystick that has these controls, then yeah, you don't really need the rudder pedals to get the basic functionality of a simulator, especially if you're not that interested in simulation value. But as you can see here with this the HOTAS Rhino X55 joystick, and pretty much all joysticks that have rudder control on them, what you'll find is that the actual amount of rotation that you've got available to you is really minimal, and it's not ideal if you're trying to land a plane at an angle and you've got your joystick like this to then also be twisting it. you know, it's not ideal. It's kind of like a bit of a workaround to allow you to have rudder control. So, you know, if you want to do things properly, unfortunately, even if you've got the rudder control with your joystick, you will want to get actual rudder pedals. Now, let's resume flight and let's talk a little bit about the build quality and the nature of these pedals, the best and worst things. So, in terms of the actual build quality of these pedals, you'll notice that they are very, very plasticky. Now, they do have they've got metal runners that the actual pedals slide up and down on, and Thrustmaster is super proud of their sliding motion advanced rail tracks. Thrustmaster think they built a train simulator here. No, these are just rudder pedals. That's metal, and the actual turbulence, and the actual well, that's it. That's the only thing that's metal. The rest of it is all plastic. They do feel really tacky, I have to say, but the build quality of them is perfectly fine. If you pick them up in your hands and you fiddle with them, they don't feel cheap, but they don't exactly feel high quality either. You can tell that Thrustmaster have designed them to the absolute bone of the specification. The actual return on them, when I add a bit of rudder here, you'll see it's got a return on it. The return is provided by a spring that can actually be accessed by opening the bottom of it, and you could replace that spring yourself if you wanted to make the return harder or the resistance harder. And I've not fiddled around with modding them yet. Because I'm reviewing these in the state that they come out of the box, and I just want to know what it's like for anyone that buys these and doesn't want to mess around, which is probably what most people buying these want. They just want something that gives them rudder pedals and is good. Yeah, I've not modded anything because of keeping them out of the box condition. But what I would say is I would probably personally put a stronger spring in it, and the reason for that is that. Though you get a good amount of distance in terms of how much rudder pedal movement there is, and the actual movement aligns very similarly to my experience of the amount of movements that you have in a real world Cessna in terms of the travel. So that's nice. Though you have that, you'll notice that even if I'm really careful with pushing them, you kind of end up moving in notches, rather than having a very smooth movement. As careful as I am with my feet on them, it is really hard. Even if you don't push down on them, which reduces the resistance of the actual rails, it's still quite hard to be super precise and super precise quickly. Infinitely better than the you're on a joystick, but that aspect probably with maybe a stronger spring and a bit of lithium grease on them might be improved, or maybe you just need better pedals. But yeah, so if we're hovering our feet on them, you can be gentle that way. If you put weights on it, that adds more to the resistance and makes it harder. But nicely, they have these bottom bits on the pedals where you can keep the bottom bit on, which allows you to then rest your foot on it and it holds your foot in place for comfort. But you can also take the bottom bit of the pedal off, which allows you to then fly with just your tippy toes. And I personally found that was the best way to actually get nice, gentle input, especially when I was flying stuff like a glider and I was trying to get the angle just right to get the maximum amount of lift whilst hovering over cliffs. So, let's get back round towards the airport. We don't want to go too far away from good old Donington or East Midlands Airport. So, another aspect of these pedals is that, unfortunately, though if you rest in your feet on them like this, they don't move that much if you're being gentle. If you're on a sort of carpet that's a slippy carpet, unfortunately, they don't have any teeth grips. If you've ever used G25 driving simulator pedals, they have grips on them that bite into the carpet. But with these pedals, they've just got these rubber feet on them. So if you actually put them on a wood floor or a vinyl floor, you're all right. But if you put them on a carpet, there's certain situations where the pedals actually will start to slip away. So you see here, if I'm actually putting a bit of not much weight on it, but a little bit of weight on it, you know, they start to move a little bit. And if you've been really, even if you've been relatively gentle, they will slide a bit. So maybe just sticking a bit of Velcro on the bottom of it is another solution. You know, it would have been nice to actually have spiky grips on the bottom of them so they work with a carpet. Now, the other aspect with these pedals is that I'd say the actual travel, as I say, for the rudder, the travel is actually really quite nice, and as I say, very similar to my experience of a real Cessna. The general resistance as well with the default spring is also perfectly fine. Could have been a little bit stiffer, but that's fine. And the travel for the brakes is also really nice. It's just the right amount that it's not. If you're sat in a normal office chair, it's not too much that you can't get the angle with your feet. And you can easily move from that rested position to the toe brake position. Let's coming in too hot, boys. Our passengers have definitely vomited all over the cockpit here, but that's fine. Let's master the crosswind here. Whoa, turbulence. So we're going to come in with the crosswind, and then we're going to try and line this up a bit more. I'm going to try and land it on the actual white lines here. Look at this angle. To come in more, and then... Whoa! While we're driving in, we're flying in gale force winds here. Sorry, passengers. Just giving you a little bit of a ride of a lifetime. And then on with the toe brakes and on with the parking brake. Not a good landing, but we've got a spine, so that's a bonus. So in conclusion, I do think these are really good pedals, and they will massively add to your flight sim experience and your actual simulation value. But I would say for £80, I would have really have liked a carpet grip, a stronger spring, and some more lubricant on the rails. Because, I mean, everyone knows you don't slide dry. You slide with a bit of lube. It's going to be more fun. I mean, come on, Thrustmaster. You're called Thrustmaster. You should get these things right. But, you know, those, I say, aspects of it feel a bit tacky when you hold it in your hands. Or in general, it just is a little bit of tackiness to it for the price. When you're actually using it on your feet, assuming you've got it on your carpet not moving around, it doesn't feel tacky and the functionality is there. So you can't really complain. It'll be interesting to see what they're like after a good sort of 3 to 6 months of usage, and it'll be really good for me personally to compare these to some other pedals. The only other pedals I've used a Logitech ones, which are another 20 to 30 pounds more expensive than these, and I would just get these instead of those. And I've also used the top end £500 Thrustmaster pedals, which are way nicer than this, and actually very close to what the real rudder pedals feel like in a real aeroplane. But £500. So, you know, these are essentially your only option. You're being held hostage by lack of lubrication Thrustmaster. But as I say, if you do decide to get some of these, feel free to use my Amazon affiliate link. And let me know in the comments if you get them. Let me know what you think. If you've got any questions in the comments, and if you just hate me for making you want to buy more simulation equipment, just shout at me. That's fine. But yeah, until the next one, guys, thanks for watching this. Happy flying, happy sim racing. Click the subscribe button, click the like button, and goodbye.